Jesus isn't real. Hello Internet, I'm David and this is the Pursuit Blog. And this statement that Jesus isn't real is something that I hear a surprisingly regular basis from atheists. They say he's a myth or a combination of a lot of different people, or that he just simply never existed and was a figment of a lot of people's imagination. And they claim this on the basis of there is no historical record of the fact that Jesus was even real. And maybe you've seen it in the news that a group of atheists have taken up billboards for this Christmas season saying that, you know, this is a myth, right? And I'm sitting here scratching my head, wondering why people find the need to try to disprove that Jesus was a real person. Are they afraid that if he is real, that then some of what he said could be true? I'm not sure, but I'll give you a chance to respond to that. But having a bachelor's degree in history and halfway through my master's degree of divinity, I think I can weigh on this topic of the historicity of Jesus. People claim that there are no historical record of Jesus outside of the Bible, and that's simply not the case. For instance, Josephus, who was a Jewish Roman historian who lived between 37 AD and 100 AD, wrote about Jesus Christ. And here's a guy who would have been the biggest opponent of Christianity at the beginning, not because he was a Roman, but because he was a Jew. And here he is in his history writing about Jesus Christ. A few decades later you have Tacitus, who lived roughly between 60 and 120 AD. And he wrote this. I'll read it to you. And so to get rid of this rumor, Nero set up as the culprits and punished with the utmost refinement of cruelty a class hated for their abominations, who are wholly called Christians. Christus, from whom the name is derived, was executed at the hands of Procurator Pontius Pilate in the reign of Tiberius. Tacitus is a Roman historian writing about Roman history, namely in Rome. And he's talking about the fact that Nero, the emperor, vilified Christians. And then he goes on to explain that Christians come from this guy named Christus, Christ, who was killed by Pontius Pilate. Tacitus would have lived at the same time as the epistles and the gospel would have been written, but it would not have been promulgated enough for that to have been the major impact on Tacitus, especially being a non-Christian. He would have cared less about the gospels. So it seems that he's getting his history from another source. But I also find it interesting that he refers to Jesus as Christus. Christ is a messianic term. So he is recognizing that everybody else at the time recognized that Jesus was the Christ. Now that is not evidence of Jesus being God, but evidence that people believed that at the time. Another Roman historian at the time of Tacitus named Suetonius wrote this: since the Jews were continually making disturbances at the instigation of Christus, he called Claudius, expelled them from Rome. Suetonius is also writing about the persecution of Christians, who again come from this guy named Christus, whom the Jews don't like. And Suetonius lived between 75 to 160 AD. Again, this is about the time that the Gospels were just getting out and passed around. And still, everyone at that time recognized that Christus had started a movement and was not well liked by the Jews. And even the Romans, at this point, were starting to get in on the action, persecuting the Christians because they were the easiest scapegoats. So for those of you that don't believe that Jesus is real, those are three secular historians who all pointed to the fact that Jesus was a real person. Now that's not proving that Jesus was God. And there are bounds and limits to what history can prove, especially 2,000 years ago. To believe that Jesus is God is an act of faith. Jesus even said, blessed are those who haven't seen and yet believe. But to portray Jesus as a non-historical figure is academic stupidity. So the atheists who go out of their way to promulgate that Jesus isn't real, I'm sorry, you're wrong. But here's a chance for everyone to respond to this. Why is it that you think that people are so ready to dismiss Jesus as a historical person? Are they afraid of the implications of what that could be? Let me know your thoughts, especially if you're one of the ones who doesn't believe that Jesus actually existed. And just a side note, not an attack, but just a side note. you're interested, if all of a sudden you realize that the Jesus in the Bible, everything that's said about him is true, how would your life change? Or would it? Make sure you check out thepursuitblog.com. Have a great day. Merry Christmas and God bless.